Captain, we have them! We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. I am your captain, Captain Sabriel Maston, and as joined by always except when not, I'm joined by Ken Gagney.
That's right. I'm Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. Hi.
It's been a while for me.
Yeah, Sabriel, you and I last chatted when we reviewed the series finale for Picard, which of course was a while ago now. And then Strange New Worlds Season 2 came on the air, and you were enjoying some shore leave. So I had Mr. David Vellante on the show talking about his sartorial perspective on the history of Star Trek, which was fascinating. He said he would love to come back on the show, and so I've added him to our rotation of many previous guests who we've loved having on the show.
Awesome. Yes, I was on shore leave singing about rowing boats and climbing mountains.
Yes. Not Yosemite, maybe the other national park that begins with a Y, but yes. And marshmallows. You know, it was like 30 years after that movie came out that I understood why they called it a marshmallow.
Really?
Yeah. I'm guessing you already knew this story.
Yeah, it's all good. There's things I don't pick up on either.
I mean, maybe we've already talked about it on the show. Maybe our listeners already know, but McCoy had reprogrammed the computer database so that when Spock looked up Earth camping traditions, he would be given the wrong information. That would be called a marshmallow, so that McCoy could make fun of him later. They cut out that scene, so all we're left with is McCoy referring to it as a marshmallow.
I mean, it still kind of works, but it could have been better if they would have left that in.
Right. I mean, is the audience left to believe that this is what marshmallows are called in the future? It's a space marshmallow. Kind of like when you get sick, you go to see your space doctor.
Exactly. Or space law. If you ever want to see them add the word space to a lot of things, go watch the original pilot of Star Trek in the first 10 minutes.
That's right.
Talk about in our space quarters about space law. It was so bad.
I love it. No, it's not bad. It's delightful.
It is delightfully campy in a way they thought they were being serious.
I mean, if you tune into an episode and you miss the first 5 minutes, how else are you going to know that they're on a spaceship and not a covered wagon going out west?
It's true. The wagon train to the stars.
They're otherwise identical. You got to have some distinction.
All right. We've got some news. Very short recap. Prodigy has been pulled by Paramount Minus. I have renamed Paramount Plus to Paramount Minus.
Yeah. Star Trek Prodigy has been canceled. They were in post-production of the second season, and they decided not only are they not going to air the second season, they're going to remove the first season from Paramount Plus.
It's so bad. It's so stupid. I hate streaming services these days.
Yeah.
The only way to watch Prodigy legally now is if you happen to buy the first half of the first season.
Although Will Wheaton, who came out in being critical of this decision, he referred to the first 20 episodes that you and I have seen as the first half of the first season, which was, I think, incorrect.
He might have made a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, we've even made a mistake once before.
Just once. We don't make mistakes more than once.
Yeah, that is sad news. Streaming services are BS, and the writers are all on strike anyway to try to fight these streaming services because how terrible they are, and no one can make a living anymore.
Yeah, apparently it's some sort of either a tax write-off or you don't need to pay royalties or both, which is the incentive for them to remove the show from their catalog, which is not only unfair and possibly unethical, but it also means that Paramount Plus is no longer the home of all of Star Trek, which is what they've been billing it to us for years.
Yep. Speaking of billing, Paramount Minus's ad-free version is now going from $10 to $13 a month, starting in July.
Oh, I didn't get that notice.
I did. Yeah.
Starting in July. Today, as you and I are recording, is July 1st.
I don't remember the exact date my email said, but it's probably whatever your first billing is.
Great.
I can't say for sure. It's just one of my guess.
Which means that the annual plan that I'm on is probably also going up.
Maybe.
Huh. I wonder how much that's going to be, because I think I've been paying $100 a year. Oh, but students get 25% off? I didn't know that. I'm not a student, but I could be. We are all students of life.
In the last bit of news I have. Oh, yeah?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to switch topic entirely. So if you got something to add.
So I'm on the Paramount Plus pricing plan page right now. It doesn't show like last modified, so I don't know if these prices are current. But what this says is the ad version is $6 a month or $60 a year. And the ad-free version, which I think used to be called like Paramount Plus Premium or something. So what it says here is it's now called Paramount Plus with Showtime.
Oh, yep. That's what I got here.
But it doesn't say ad-free, which is my experience of Paramount Plus. So I don't really care about Showtime. I just care about not having ads. Anyway, that plan is $12 a month or $120 a year. So it's going up $2 a month or $20 a year.
I don't care about Showtime.
Right?
And I still get ads anyway, but it's just for Paramount stuff.
It's house ads. Yeah, every time before you start watching a Paramount show, it shows you a commercial for another Paramount show, like Yellowstone or Yellow Jackets, or I don't even know. Is Yellowstone Paramount Plus? I can't keep track.
The only thing I watch on Paramount Plus is Star Trek.
Right.
I cancel it.
Sometimes there's a movie I want to see, like the Dungeons and Dragons movie is on Paramount Plus, and I might want to see that again. And I think the second Quiet Place movie, which was supposed to come out in theaters and got postponed due to the pandemic by like a year or two, I watched that on Paramount Plus. Actually, when I was last visiting you, so one quiet, frigid night in Fargo, North Dakota, I just scared myself with a scary movie, because why not? But yeah, we're hoping that some other network picks up Star Trek Prodigy and runs the second season. I don't know if that's even legally possible since Paramount owns the rights to Star Trek, but it's also a collaboration with Nickelodeon, and they eventually aired season 1.
Nickelodeon is also Paramount.
It is?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were part of that conglomerate.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Yep. And the last bit of news I got, Andrew Robinson is reprising his role as Garak for the audiobook as narrator of his Star Trek book, A Stitch in Time.
I'm surprised there isn't already an audio version of A Stitch in Time.
Maybe there is. I don't know, but he's been narrating a new one anyway.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I like him. I like his character. I like his actor.
Yes. Oh, it seems great. Garak is one of the best bad guys out there. Or is he?
He's a good guy. I like him. He's an anti-hero.
Yes.
He's willing to do the things that the heroes can't and won't. And I can live with that. You know, I probably have mentioned on the show before, but my mom watches Days of Our Lives, the soap opera, and I grew up watching it with her. And there was one episode where Andrew Robinson showed up. Like, he played this other character's cousin, and he just like was in one episode. I think maybe even just one scene. He just came and went. The only reason I recognized him without his Kardashian makeup was because of his like big eyes and big smirk. And so I would about 2 years ago, I went searching on the internet to try to verify this memory of mine because it wasn't listed in IMDb. It wasn't listed on Wikipedia, but there were, and like in a Days of Our Lives wiki somewhere, he was listed as a guest star. And so I didn't make it up. It's just that it was such a small appearance and hadn't made it into the like formal records. And so I updated those records to include that, yes, Andrew Robinson was on the soap opera.
That's awesome.
Yeah, weird. All right. Should I talk about Strange New Worlds?
Let's talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We're going to talk about 2 episodes today. The first one is the second episode of season 2, Ad Astra per Aspera, the motto of Starfleet.
Yeah, and then we will talk about the third episode, which is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But to start...
I thought we were going to be done today. Okay.
Yesterday? But we'll start by talking about To the Stars by Hardways, which is a phrase I first learned from the movie Armageddon.
Oh, really? I don't know that at all.
It was in there somewhere. But
I enjoy courtroom episodes. They kind of dive into characters and just the setting itself at the time and its exploration. And I liked this episode for that aspect alone, let alone the meat of it.
Yeah, this was a nice resolution to the cliffhanger from last season, which was number 1 being arrested for being genetically modified, which even at the time I found strange because it's not something she did as a Starfleet member. It's the way that she was born and raised. And I thought it was strange. Like they said in this episode, and like I've said on this show, there are very good reasons based on the eugenics wars why this is outlawed in Starfleet. But to apply that to other cultures seems very narrow-minded and not consistent with the IDIC philosophy of Starfleet.
That's exactly what they're going for here.
Yep.
And like knowing that these laws still exist by Deep Space Nine's time and Dr. Bashir, like I knew they weren't going to get rid of them or anything like that. So it's more for me. It's also part of the exploration. How are they going to get around this? Because I know Una's in the rest of the season. So like, how are they going to be doing this?
It's kind of like when the Doctor from Voyager was suing for freedom, for individuality, to be recognized as a person. And they said, well, that's beyond the scope of this ruling. We are not in a place to do that, but we can assign you authorship of your book. So it's a narrow ruling and doesn't necessarily set a precedent for all other holograms. Kind of like this doesn't set a precedent for other genetically modified individuals.
Where should we go next?
Well, I found an article on the Escapist magazine that I shared with you about how this courtroom drama, it made 2 points, both of which I found fascinating. One was that it feels, in this author's opinion, that the last 6 or 7 years of Star Trek have not really grappled with difficult philosophical or moral issues. It's really been more of an action show. And that this episode brought back what we're used to seeing in TOS and TNG and also to a degree, DS9.
I can see that to some extent, but it's also more about exploring within. Discovery does a lot of exploring the characters of themselves. Like how many times we talked about and praised how, wow, they're doing therapy in Disco. It is a lot more action-based, long story-based, but more inner exploration than a lot of the previous checks really allowed.
But does that inner exploration really grapple with
And as I said, yeah, it's
social or societal issues?
That's what I'm also just adding to. It doesn't really like we do talk like we have non-binary characters now. We have
Yes.
gay characters, but they don't really tackle those. They are just accepted, which kind of appreciate that those topics aren't the controversial ones. But here, like they use Una to basically have those discussions about queer rights, minority representation, civil rights.
And that was the other point that this Escapist magazine article was making, was that Una was a stand-in, a metaphor for some of the issues we're grappling with today, and almost literally today, especially given yesterday's Supreme Court ruling regarding LGBT rights and web design in Colorado. And this was obvious to you from the DMs that you and I exchanged, that this wasn't necessarily an episode about genetic modification. It was an episode about...
Bit.
Okay.
That was just the flavoring to talk about today's issues. I understood that from season 1 too with Una. Like there was a lot of trans allegory there as well, accepted, being seen, being able to be yourself. And here they double down on that with the talk of like passing
As a human, passing as a non-modified individual.
Well, or in the case of trans people, passing as your preferred gender.
Do you use the word preferred?
No.
Is that
it's words that came out? Passing as the gender you perceive you are. So
because I had that discussion recently with a friend of mine. She is very liberal, and she herself is queer, but also of a different generation. And I was filling out this form online, and the form asked me for. I was making an appointment for a haircut, and it asked me for my preferred pronouns. And I said, I'm really glad that they're asking, but the word preferred isn't really appropriate here. It's right. Like they are my pronouns. And my friend didn't understand that. Like they said, well, Ken, pronouns aren't assigned by God, like some people believe. You get to choose what your pronouns are. It's your preference. I was like, well, okay, on one hand, yes, you do get to choose. On the other hand, it's not a choice, it's who you are. But regardless, it's not a preference. Even if it is a choice, it's not a preference. And she said, well, what's the difference between a choice and a preference? I said, if I ask for Coke and you give me Pepsi, that's okay. If I say my pronouns are he, him, and you use she, her, that's not okay. And my friend was like, oh, that does make sense.
My brain went to Coke, Pepsi as well.
See? It's like it's the ultimate preference.
And some people can have preferred pronouns. But it's just to blanket that to everybody.
This is true as well. So I historically was confused by individuals who had she, they as their pronoun, as an example. And on one of my podcasts on Polygamer, I had the opportunity to ask somebody, what does that mean? And they said that they actually do have a preference between those two, but they'll accept either. Not that it's quite the same thing, but there are two pronunciations of my surname, and I accept either. I have a preferred one, but if somebody uses the other one, I was like, you know what? That is actually a correct pronunciation, and I'm not going to tell you it's wrong because you're not. It's just not the one I use.
Right. Getting back to here.
Yeah.
This episode is regarded by a lot of the community as one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever.
I definitely saw it being called one of the best episodes in the last 20 years. I didn't see many people. I mean, I'm no longer on as much social media as I used to be, so I may have missed those comments. But you're seeing people say it's one of the best episodes ever.
Yeah. Maybe it's a little early to judge, but I really liked it. I mean, this episode, even tomorrow, I cried at the end, which Star Trek does not invoke me to cry very often. Like any show doesn't. It's not just Star Trek; it's any show.
Well, as I've told you, I cry at everything nowadays. There's actually a private mental health channel in my workplace Slack, and I was like, "Hey, everybody, why am I crying at everything nowadays?" And we actually end up drafting an internal blog post that we shared with the company of like, hey, if you're looking to cry, here are some YouTube clips that will make that happen. And so I put the end of Frozen, the end of Homeward Bound, the end of Inside Out, basically every Disney movie ever. The end of The Iron Giant. But yeah, these episodes definitely have those moments. For me, I don't think I cried necessarily at Astra per Aspera, but at the very end, I've said on the show before how I love seeing characters hug. I loved it when Picard hugged Q. I loved it when Picard amicably put his arm around Riker's shoulder. I wish that Pike and Spock had hugged after that whole I accidentally started the Romulan War alternate timeline. And at the end of this episode, I was like, so it was just Pike and Una alone in the transporter room. And Pike is like, he's got this goofy grin, like, wow, that was really close, huh? And I was like, no, just be sincere. You were really worried about this person. Give him a hug. And he did. He gave her a hug. I was like, yes. And then he pulled right back out and he clapped her on the shoulder. He's like, good to have you back, number one.
That short scene just shows how much of a shared history that they have that we are completely unaware of. I mean, they've hinted at it, they've teased it, and here's just more of it. Like even in they had the episode where the crew got kidnapped, or on
the pirate ship.
And the pirates, and they just already had plans. Like they have a history. It goes way back, and that's just a little bit more. But so that hug just meant so much to those two characters, and it was just very lovely.
Yeah, it's nice when crewmen are also friends. I think that's when Star Trek is at its best. We saw it in TOS and TNG. We saw it with Miles and Julian. A little bit less so on Voyager because that was intentionally Starfleet and Maquis and a lot of tension between them.
I mean, that was supposed to be. They failed that so hard, but they had Paris and Harry, Kim.
Oh, that's true.
And then Paris and B'Elanna got married, but it wasn't the same as any of these other shows. It wasn't the same because Voyager was just Voyager. We had and Archer as well.
Oh yeah, they went back.
Anything more you want to add there?
About friendships? No, but there's more about this episode I want to talk about.
Yeah, no, of course. Before we talk about the whole court thing, there's one thing that took me out of this episode. Every time they were in the courtroom. I don't know if you caught it.
No.
Okay. The courtroom was the Federation headquarters from Discovery. This big weird ass circle in the center for no reason, a hole in the center. They just redressed it and put a window in the background so they could show. They put the circular stage so they could show San Francisco in the background.
And Discovery, you're talking about 900 years in the future. That's a long-lived building.
And I was watching the ready room, and that's just before the episode here, because that took me out of the episode right when it happened. Like, this is the Federation headquarters set, just redressed. And here 2 weeks later, I was watching the ready room this morning, and they're talking about, yeah, we went to go see the Discovery sets, and we discovered we actually like that set a lot. And we figured if we could figure out a way to use it, now we're kind of deciding, like, they're retrofitting, like they were using that in Starfleet headquarters, all these hundreds of years before that, and then Federation HQ is still using that. Like, that's how they're in their headcanon. It was just such a popular, iconic set of uh interior design, or whatever the word would be, architecture, that they kept using it 1,000 years later.
But it can't be physically the same space, because one is a building in San Francisco and the other is a space station that is also
That's
a
not what he's
spaceship.
going for. He's saying just the architecture of
Okay.
the circular rooms was so popular or so iconic to Starfleet in their headcanon. I'm like, okay, sure.
You know what I think is a really fun page on Memory Alpha is that for the Enterprise D's battle bridge, because then it'll show you all the other times it's been used as other things. Like,
the Bozeman, or Morgan Baseman's ship. It was the movie set.
Yep. Like, why would they build this set for the very first episode of TNG and then never use it again? The answer is they did use it, just not as that.
All the movies and all the other ships, and
Yep.
I found out from Trek Culture, a really neat YouTube channel I watch a lot, that the Federation HQ set, the circular one / the courtroom, used to be the Section 31 ship bridge in Discovery. Before that, it was the bridge for the Shenzhou.
Huh.
Interesting. They
Interesting.
just kept reusing it. So the only part from the Shenzhou bridge that's still there, really, that you can notice, is the dome above the captain's bridge.
And before that, it was a saloon on Bonanza.
Probably.
Just kept reusing it.
Vasquez rocks. But anyway.
We've both been there, right?
Vasquez, yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, back to the court. I just want to talk about that thing that took me out of the episode every time I saw it. Because it was so creepy to me.
I love your eye for detail. These are fascinating things. Like, I, as I've said before on this podcast, I nitpick Star Trek, not because I dislike it, but because I love details. And I love that you catch ones that I miss. So thank you.
So Nira, our counselor that Pike was going to go find in the first episode.
Yep.
We get to see her. She's a Illyrian civil rights lawyer. It was not part of the Federation, because they're not part of the Federation. She and Una have a history that we don't know about yet.
Well, I think we got it in this episode.
No, we didn't know about yet when we met her.
Correct.
And we explored that throughout this indirectly. Yeah. There was rarely any actual thing, like, other than, you know what you did kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was neat. And the first witness that we talked to was April, Robert April.
Mm-hmm.
That was I liked she was not attacking him. I thought she was on the right path of calling out April and Starfleet for their willingness to bend the rules when they need to, so why not here? But the court did not want to hear it.
Well, it was not clear at the time how relevant that line of questioning was. It became relevant.
I thought it was so obvious.
Yeah, but then April goes to Pike and says, Una is one of my most decorated officers. It's a shame the court didn't get to hear that today. Like, that would have been a good line of questioning also for the counselor to have pursued.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But I saw where she was going right away. And the court did not want to hear it.
You are more legally attuned than I am. You have more of a tactical mind like that.
I mean, when you're dating, or maybe, I don't know.
I do not know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just yes, this is it. This is how you do it. They bend the rules all the time. But then Robert April's like, we have to do this all the time out there. They're all in the middle of nowhere and where no one has gone before. And no, he didn't say that, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I like when they bring Robert April onto the show, because he's so good. I mean, he was only made canon by this series, Strange New Worlds, because before that he was just TAS, right? The animated series?
He was mentioned, I think, in original series. But,
he was?
And then we actually got to see him in animated series. And then now we actually get to explore the character here in Strange New Worlds.
And in the animated series, he wasn't necessarily a good guy, because he was trying to revive his own youth.
Yeah.
Kind of like in Star Trek Insurrection. Oh well. But yeah, it is good to see him some more. I like him as a character. I like the actor. And I think I even like the counselor. I didn't at first. I loved the way Pike got into her office, which was basically by passing out. He is a very determined individual.
Yes, I mean that shows more our Boy Scouts doing it right. And also, like season 1, he's like, I welcome the conversation to not have you here. And here they're like, no, you are not having that conversation because you are a weakness. You are too close to Una. And his side hustle girl, basically calling him out and showing him that. It's like, I think it made him go like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know that she was doing her job and following the rules, but I nonetheless, despite her saying that, despite her helping Pike, I wasn't always clear whose side she was on, because, like, when the counselor would make a great argument, this person would smile. Like, oh, yeah, good job saving Una, even though I'm trying to destroy her.
Just think of it like in the episode of Data.
Yep,
where
kind of like how
Riker had to defend him.
Yep.
Like, she doesn't want to do this, but she has to do her job.
Yep.
And like so I mean, she was going to. I felt like she was still on Una's side, even even though she had to be against it.
Yeah, and that Vulcan that she was working with, he was a hard hitter.
Yeah, I mean that fight that him and Spock had.
Oh, it was such a shame we had to see that. That outburst.
That was very interesting, and the way that Mbenga, there we go, was able to catch that.
Yep. He's very attuned to that physiology and that physical tension. Yeah, I loved that the counselor basically played the opposition, the prosecutor. Like, she wanted it to come out that Una had turned herself in and that Pike had known 4 months earlier. Like, those were integral to her ultimate defense of Una. And the prosecutor helped that information come out. So that's why Una says, you knew all along. And the counselor's like, yep.
Yeah. And to be able to twist it to be a case for asylum. I think it's a clever finale to how they get around it.
I do find it odd, though, because the request for asylum came years after she first lied about her application on to Starfleet Academy. You know, I kind of feel like she would have had to make that request sooner, but...
I mean, Starfleet wanted to cover this up. They're going to go like, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah, I guess if they basically came to a compromise, like where Starfleet, they can't cover this up, but they can say it was a case for asylum. This woman was being prosecuted for who she was, and we gave her a safe space as a decorated officer.
Right. I'd be remiss to ignore that also we had La'an as a character witness along with a few others, but for hers was the most important because of how angry she was at Una for hiding this from her last season. And the growth that she had to be able to turn around and basically Una is family and be there to protect her.
I was a little confused between the exchange with the La'an and the prosecutor, because the prosecutor said the person who turned Una in is the person who has the most to gain from it. And La'an said, why do I feel like I just got hit by a shuttlecraft? I don't understand that. That felt like a non sequitur to me.
I honestly didn't catch that even when I remember the line where I was thinking about that, like, what does that mean? I still haven't figured that out either. I'm guessing it's just something that went over my head. She got broadsided. Okay, let's think this out. She got broadsided by...
I mean, I know what it... Yeah, by the possibility of what?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm talking it up.
Yeah. Like, I understand it means that she was broadsided, but it was... The only thing I can think of is that La'an figured out in that moment, even though she didn't say it to us, the audience, that Una was the one who turned Una in.
Yeah, I didn't quite make the connection. Yeah.
So
I didn't do the second viewing either, so...
Yeah, I feel like there's just a leap in logic that we, the audience, are not following.
Or at least you and me.
We are the audience. We are the target audience. People who host Star Trek podcasts.
I thought about this before, then she brought it up here in the ready room and I watched today. This is the second time Rebecca Romaine has played a character who's fighting for the rights of a minority when she was in X-Men as a mutant. Yeah,
but she wasn't necessarily in a courtroom setting.
No, okay, that's not what I meant. That was but she's still...
Yes.
The X-Men was about the rights for mutants.
Yes.
That's what I mean. Not
yes.
Parallel 1-to-1.
Yes.
She was still... The second time she's been doing that role.
Yep.
And I just thought it was interesting. I thought about that, and then I was watching the Ready Room this morning, and she talked about it there too. I found out she's a first-generation immigrant. Like, her parents moved here.
From where?
Gosh, I don't know if she mentioned it or I didn't put it to memory, but she was born here and I just had no idea.
Let me see. She was born in Berkeley, California, and her father is a native of the Netherlands, while her mother is an American of Dutch and English ancestry. So there you
Her
have it.
mother, well, the way she's talking, her mother had to learn English as a second language. Well, here, so I don't know.
I mean, who are you going to trust to know about Rebecca's mother? Rebecca
Mhm.
or Wikipedia?
Wikipedia, of course.
Right, that's the correct answer. Oh, and she just turned 50.
Yeah. Oh,
And
she's so pretty for her
wait,
age.
she's married to Jerry O'Connell
Yeah, they had 2 girls.
from Sliders?
Sliders.
Because I think Jerry O'Connell's brother played his brother on Sliders.
Oh,
And I got confused about which O'Connell this was. This is the good one.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this is like the main character who was in the pilot who invented the sliding machine.
Uh-huh.
And here he is, a picture of him at San Diego Comic-Con 2019 with a Star Trek t-shirt. Okay.
It's awesome.
Yes. Oh, and
Wait.
he plays, of course, he's on Lower Decks.
Uh-huh.
He plays Commander Jack Ransom.
Okay, I was about to get that, so you got there.
Like, I knew that, but we were coming at it from such a different direction that I just forgot. But, so Una is married to Ransom. I love that. And that's going to make the crossover all the more interesting.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's fun.
Yeah.
No, because it's probably not related. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah. No spoilers.
I don't really have any spoilers, but anyway.
Yes, but my threshold for spoilers are very low.
There's an episode of Star Trek coming up next week, Ken.
What? No, stop. Why did you do that? I can't forget that now. I like it to be a surprise every Thursday.
Wow. It's really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. We still have one more to go.
Yeah, I felt like there was something else I wanted to say about this episode. I don't remember what it was, but you recommended that I go rewatch the Short Trek Q&A.
That's what I was going to say. Yes. And I recommended this because I was watching it with one of my partners, and she had mentioned during the trial she mentioned it was brought up. Spock brought up the Sullivan.
Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm gonna go back and watch that Q&A with my partner because she's seen that too. So we should watch that again. She's like, okay. So we did, and then had this moment. They had a lot of scenes in there talking about basically the idea of keep your freaky hidden. And but there were some things that were mentioned in there that I don't think was intentional at the time because they didn't have any idea that Strange New Worlds was going to be a show when they filmed that Q&A, but it became prescient. And I thought that was so awesome how it, I think, accidentally connected.
So what kind of things?
Here's for you to talk because you mentioned it too.
Well, for example, she said, if you want to achieve command, you have to keep to yourself the things that make other people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what she did. She was speaking from experience and not just because she loves Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes.
And I question whether or not they knew that Strange New Worlds was going to be a thing. Because, I mean, we didn't. You're right.
I don't think they did.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they had an inkling because that Q&A focused on Spock and Una. And yeah, Spock was, they were both in Discovery Season 2, especially Spock. But I feel like what we learn about those characters in that Q&A isn't relevant to Discovery Season 2. It's only relevant to Strange New Worlds. So I feel like they may have been building up those characters for a reason.
Maybe they had some, to me, maybe they had some writer discussions like, what if these characters, this, that, but never actually, because they filmed those at the same time they filmed the series, and no one knew how popular Pike was going to be.
You mean Season 2?
Yeah. They had no.
Oh, okay.
They would have no idea how popular Pike was going to become to get the fans to, like rally behind him and his crew. Like Pike is the reason Strange New Worlds exists. Pike's character and Anson Mount is the reason Strange New Worlds exists.
I believe that.
And I don't think, and so like, and Spock, and Una, like they were ancillary. I mean, like Spock was important to Season 2, but like it was all Anson Mount, and they filmed those short treks so long ago, long before the fan outcry, like we want more.
But given how many Star Trek spinoffs they're doing, I wouldn't be surprised if they were thinking, let's build up as many characters as we can and see what resonates, and if we can spin it off.
Maybe, like I said,
I don't
maybe the
know.
writers' room. They're like, what if we made, or excuse me, what if we made like Una the reason why she's so, the way she is because she's actually not human or something like that. Like things like that, but very loose. I'm guessing at most.
Didn't Peter David do some novels featuring Una?
I don't know.
And I think she was identified as an alien. And I think they might have even explained why she looks so much like Deanna's mother.
Yeah.
I forget. I didn't read them, but I think she was determined to be non-Homo sapiens.
Maybe they borrowed from that too.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time they've taken non-canon stuff, especially from the animated series, and made them canon.
Or what's Vulcan in Discovery now called? Navarre. Was borrowed from fan fiction.
Right? And I think even the Star Wars animated series introduced a general who was in the novels, Shadow of the Empire or something.
Thrawn.
Yeah, that's him. I didn't read those books or see the show, but I remember fans' minds exploding when that character appeared in the series, because he'd been in the novels for, I think, almost 30 years at that point.
Then he's in Rebels, and then he's in Mando.
Right? Oh, he's in Mando. Okay.
Alluded to.
Spoiler.
It's not a spoiler.
Okay.
Trust me, his existence is not a spoiler.
Yeah.
So Ad Astra per Aspera. I loved it. I had a lot of good time. I had a lot of good time with the sentence that normal people say.
Wait, what do old people say?
I said what a lot of people say is I have a good time. When they're talking about shows, yes. Yeah,
I enjoyed it very much. It was a nice change in pace from a lot of Star Trek we've seen lately. I've told people this before. Discovery and Strange New Worlds could not be more different, and that's why I love them both.
Mm-hmm.
They're both Star Trek. So, shall we talk about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow?
Yes. Why don't you kick us off? Because I started with the first one.
Yeah, okay. So the title I first thought was a reference to the TOS episode Tomorrow's Yesterday, where they also go back in time to 20th century Earth or thereabouts. And you pointed out to me that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow is a quote from Macbeth by Shakespeare, or as we call it in theater, the Scottish Shakespeare play. So it is not a reference to the TOS episode, even though it is, again, about time travel. This episode, I don't know how the writers thought of it. Like, how do they took an alternate timeline Kirk and paired him with La'an to go back in time 200 years on an adventure. Like, that never would have occurred to me.
Dear ChatGPT, what are some characters, or they get the Powerball balls with ideas on each one and just put the button.
Right. I'm always a little frustrated when time travel is handled like it's not a big deal. Like in Tomorrow's Yesterday with TOS, like, oh yeah, we just went back in time to observe 20th century Earth and see what it's like. Or in that one episode of Enterprise, what was it called, like Bleecker Street or whatever? They just did.
I know it's episode or something street.
Yeah, they just go back in time like it's a thing you do. Whereas Picard season 2, they did 10 episodes about it. Like, this was a whole big thing. Let's go back in time, find what changed, and fixed it. And they took them 10 hours to do that, which I thought was too much. And yet they do the same thing in 1 hour of Strange New Worlds, which I felt like was too little. And
that was, one of the comments I saw was people from a few people was that this episode did Picard season 2 better than Picard season 2 all in one episode.
I believe that. I mean, very different goals, but yeah, we learn a lot about a character in this.
La'an, I love La'an, and this episode really allowed us to see Christina Chong's range, and we finally got to see La'an being vulnerable in everything that she had to go through here.
Yeah, we start off with her sparring with the Doctor and being somebody who can really put up a wall.
Yeah, she's stuck on herself in her head about her past.
Yeah.
And everyone sees her as a related to Khan, not as herself.
And yet we see that wall start to come down, and part of that is because she doesn't even realize this till halfway through the episode. Nobody in 21st century Earth at that point, including Kirk, knows her family name.
The connection to Kirk here. Oh gosh. Okay, let's go back to the beginning here. Suddenly a time travel agent appears, has a gunshot wound. He's a guy from okay, this is a connection to Voyager. Loosely. Remember the relativity, the time ship relativity?
Sure.
His little badge thing, whatever his little device was using the same UI as all the consoles on relativity. I that was like, oh, it's a neat little connection.
Was on Voyager, were they also called the Department of Temporal Investigations?
I don't know if it was ever brought up a name, but we just knew that they travel through time like current people travel through the stars.
Because the DTI, I think of that as Agents Skulder and Mully from DS9.
And they were brought up on DS9 too.
Yeah, but like they don't have time travel capabilities. They just investigate. They don't correct. I know that in the future there is a force that corrects, but I didn't think that was the DTI.
We just were never told, and so
or we were told and forgot.
Nah, Voyager was never brought up.
Because it's been 25 years. I have forgotten more than I've ever known.
But who knows? Maybe they work across generations too.
Or maybe there are multiple future timelines, and in one of them, it is the DTI.
Which is an interesting idea. Who is right, and what is the natural timeline, right? And they talk about that in more the Marvel universe too.
Well, there is a DTI novel I read featuring Skulder and Mully as the main characters, and one of them, like, they actually are collaborating with this future group from the Voyager episodes. So the future group is traveling back in time, working with today's DTI to fix certain temporal anomalies, but not all of them, because some of those anomalies, if left uncorrected, create the timeline in which that future time correction force exists, and they're trying not to erase their own timeline.
That's fun.
Yeah.
The time is a wibbly wobbly.
Timey-wimey.
So, we get open with La'an talking about her being a security officer and all the friends she has. She has a funny little scene with like a denobulant and the transporter person. It's like, you just stole my stuff. I'm like, the transporter doesn't work that way. We get Spock getting noise complaints against him because he's playing his little Vulcan flute more, whatever, a lute here. Yeah. And then I love Carol Kane so much. I already loved her as an actress, and then to have her here. And her little Department of Archaeology and stolen goods. Oh, it's so much fun. I love her little line. I wrote it down like, I still have a bunker in Vermont in case this no money socialist utopia things turned out to be a fad.
It's not a bad idea.
Nope. It's so much fun. And then
her,
boom.
When you live as long as she does, the definition of a fad is very different from how you and I define it.
Yep.
It's not just a meme. What is a meme? It's something that can last a long time and still be a fad.
And even the word meme keeps changing. Now it's just a joke. But anyway, as opposed to the original meaning of a guy who's a jerk who made it up. Anyway, we're alternate reality. All of a sudden, Kirk's on the bridge of the Enterprise. Still with a different comm badge, we're still wearing the Starfleet Delta on their uniforms. Oops.
And it's not Starfleet. It's like the United Earth Fleet.
Yeah. I didn't catch it the first time. I was watching again this morning, and I saw, how all the ships have the little plaque about the ship. When La'an walks by it, it's the UEF Enterprise.
Oh, interesting. Nice. And we have like Captain Spock of the Vulcan ship.
We have Kirk hanging up on Spock as the Vulcans are being destroyed by the Romulans, and the Earth is next, basically. Which was like, wow, like that's an interesting way to show like how things are different in this universe when Captain Kirk is hanging up on Captain Spock,
and yet
who each other are.
And yet you can deviate from the original timeline so dramatically and still end up with the same bridge officers. Yep,
at least most of them. Like O'Hara was still there, and who else is still there?
Melissa.
Oh, yep. I'm drawing a blank on her name. My favorite characters.
Yeah, same. It's fine.
But then we get a random other Protestant comp. Anyway, this alternate universe, boom, 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 we talk. I've never heard of Starfleet. We push the button by accident, and we go back to Toronto, which is not New York.
But didn't La'an try pushing that button before she got to the bridge? Like, didn't she wonder what it was? It was only when they grappled for it.
If she did, I didn't see the scene.
No, but I would just think that she would have tried. But anyway, yeah,
because the guy said go to the bridge, and she took that to mean, okay, the bridge is where I'm going to get an answer to this thing that I'm holding.
Yeah, I know that this is a great episode for La'an, and I love the interaction between her and Kirk, but I have so many nitpicky objections to this episode.
Really?
Okay, so he doesn't know the difference between New York and Toronto. He's never seen a sunset on Earth. He doesn't know how a revolving door works, and yet he knows how to buy hot dogs from a hot dog stand. It's like, oh, 2 please. Here's $5. Thanks. Like, that should have challenged you. Like, that should not have been an easy interaction for you, and yet you did. And also, the whole Romulans have been interfering with our timeline for ages. Like, where did they get that technology? How come we never knew about it? So the bridge blew up in our original timeline. We're not here to fix that, and that's okay?
Okay, let's slow down. Let's slow down here. Okay. All right. Spending money. I could see the UEF having money still. They don't have their socialist utopia. Vulcans never came. Things never changed. I could see him understanding the transaction of money and having stands at planets he visits. I mean, we even see in Discovery they go to various planets and there are stalls where you buy stuff.
Okay, fair.
That one I can get. We have a little joke to he's still from Iowa, but it's a different Iowa.
As the USS Iowa.
Uh-huh.
And like, he's never been, so he's been to planets where there are carts and stalls, but not revolving doors?
I don't know. He's never been to a Casino Royale.
Okay, that's a great reference. Thank you.
I thought it was funny, but also confusing how he was able to fleece people on 2D chess. I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. It's goofy, but I thought it was interesting. But he's never seen an Earth. We've always shown in Star Trek that humans are most connected to Earth sunsets. It can be on sunset in any other planet, but it's never the same as Earth. For whatever reason, it's just how Star Trek connects humans to Earth still. And so, like, for him to have that moment, I'm like, that feels normal still to me for Star Trek normal.
Oh, sure. No, I wasn't objecting to him having never seen a Earth sunset and to being moved by it. I was just using that in the broader context of, like, he's never seen an Earth sunset. He doesn't know the difference between New York and Toronto. I'm saying that because to establish a baseline of this guy not knowing what Earth is like. Mm-hmm. And yet he can interact with a hot dog stand.
Gotcha. See, that part didn't bug me. What was me, even like hot wiring a car, stealing a car, not hot wiring, they stole a car. Like, okay, it's Kirk. We've seen him drive cars. Yeah, that's not that he has in this timeline, but I'm like, okay, he's Kirk. He can do things.
He went from
like Kirk can do things.
When he first got in that car, like, he kept going forward and backward and backing into cars, and all of a sudden he's doing like these wild spins, like it's Fast and the Furious. He learned very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that is a stretch, but for me, I'm just like, okay, that didn't bug me. I noticed it, but it didn't bug me.
I suppose I can say the same thing. I was like, oh, wow, okay. I don't know how to do those moves in my car, and I've been driving for 25 years.
But you weren't chasing after people.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. We also got so I didn't, but he earned a lot of money from that chest to get that penthouse and to drive like to Vermont and back. It's a day trip basically to Vermont and a day trip back kind of thing from Toronto.
And they went to a lot of universities and archaeology departments in that time. That was the other thing.
Time's a little wibbly wobbly here.
And like, you and I brought this up when we were watching the finale of Discovery Season 2, where there isn't a sense of urgency. Like, they have limited time to do something, and they're taking all the time they want. And I saw that here. They're like, okay, you've been sent back in time to figure out what went wrong and to change it. And you're like, let's go get some hot dogs. Like, okay, yes, you have to eat, but I didn't get a sense of urgency.
I would say, like, they didn't know the urgency. Like, I agree with you. Like, it was just timing was weird, and they were able to get around really quickly. There's some things they had to, I guess, give up because they weren't really important to the story ultimately. But I agree with you. It did kind of feel like, why are you doing this? It did feel that.
Yeah, because chess takes a while to play.
Right, and to get that much money from chess, holy crap!
Like, how many? It's like I think he implied before he sat down that he could earn some money pretty quickly. I was like, if you played 6 chess games, that could have been 3 hours at least. Like, unless you're supremely good at this.
I'm with you. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But if we get stuck on that, we're never gonna.
Never gonna what?
We're never gonna be able to talk about the episode.
We are talking about the episode.
La'an and Kirk build a connection.
Yes.
Everything there felt natural to me. I just have no interest in hetero connections.
Do you think that this was just, I mean, So that's another thing, is that a lot of this episode, I didn't see this Kirk being reminiscent of Shatner's Kirk.
Well, that's the thing with Paul Wesley here. Like, I was having this discussion with a friend of mine, Shar. We were talking about this. Like, this Kirk doesn't still feel like Kirk yet. His version of Kirk. He's kind of there, but not. And actually, up until the last few seconds of this episode, we had not seen the Prime Kirk yet. This is for a few things. We've only seen alternate universe Kirks. With the end of season 1 of Strange New Worlds and this
You're
episode.
right.
Uh-huh.
You're right.
There's that. Also, like we still feel like he still doesn't feel like Kirk. Like he feels like he's natural in it, but he doesn't feel like Kirk. And I was watching the Ready Room just before today, and they talked about that. He's underplaying Kirk, so there is room for growth. Because if he was the Kirk that we know, like it's just not right? It's not the same. There's no room for growth to explore the character over time. Like in the movies, sure. Chris Pine immediately go to the Kirk that we know because it's the movie. We get 2 hours with these people, hour and a half. That makes sense. But here, when we have a show that can bring the character back more, maybe explore him as a minor character. He's a B character. He is not Strange New Worlds. Like he is not original series Kirk yet. And so, like, yeah, he's not going to have that gravitas yet.
And yet, one consistency I have noticed is that Kirk in TOS was a real womanizer. Do you think that his relationship with La'an was just another alien chick of the week?
I didn't feel that way at all here. And like that is his legacy. That is the pulp culture legacy. But like with all these women, look, he always goes back to his crew and his ship, right? He's just like Janeway did the same thing. Like she got with a bunch of guys on her path back to Earth. Picard got with lots of women as he was going around. Like we give Kirk this pop culture icon status of a womanizer, but like even Archer does it. The only one who didn't really was Sisko. Or I guess Michael Burnham doesn't either. But like in classic Trek, as we think everything we appropriate to Kirk, most of the captains do to some extent.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And so, but I didn't. For them, this Kirk and La'an, they had a connection that just felt very natural. It didn't feel like I'm on this planet with the glossy, with the Vaseline pasted over the monitor or like the camera.
Yeah, a green skin girl.
Yeah, it felt natural, even if it was hetero.
So I have 2 questions about their relationship. One is, she's wearing the watch. He kisses her. She kisses him back. The watch goes off. He says, "You broke your promise." What promise?
Oh, they were talking about because he wanted to wear the watch.
Yeah,
it was like something about like you promised me if you see anything about the watch kind of thing. It wasn't a like real like you made a promise. It was a little cheeky little fine. Just promise me you'll tell me because so you don't do anything on your own. I mean, it was just 2 people kind of flirting back and forth to me.
I don't remember her saying that he could wear the watch. I remember him asking to.
No. She didn't say he could.
So what's the promise?
She was supposed to tell him promise to actually tell if she notices anything.
Oh, so the fact that he noticed it, but the fact that he noticed before she did is the promise?
She wasn't looking at the watch. No. He wanted to wear it. He's like, well, fine. If you're going to wear it, promise me you'll tell me if you notice anything kind of thing.
Okay.
It wasn't anything deep. It wasn't meant to be a pinky swear kind of comment. It was a...
No, I didn't think it was. I knew it had to do with the watch. I just didn't understand it.
Didn't catch that.
And the other thing is, why did the camera zoom in on the watch as the final shot of the episode?
Yes, why did it? I think it means it's going to hint at something coming in the future.
Huh.
We don't know why. It was very ominous. I think that was intentional as you should remember this scene. Because it's definitely going to show up in some recap in 2, 3, 4 episodes from now. Going, hey, remember the watch? I don't know why. We don't know why. We're not privy to anything why they zoomed in on that other than this is ominous. Remember this.
I thought when she went back on the bridge at the end of the episode and Pike is back, that Carol Kane was going to say something.
Yeah,
like,
we don't know if she remembers her.
Like, I recognize you in that outfit. You must have just had that adventure.
Uh-huh.
There
was no cheeky nod. There was nothing.
Like for all we know, it was La'an and Kirk who inspired Carol Kane to become an engineer.
That's what they want you to
right.
be open to the possibility for.
Right. I mean, I know the DTI was trying to correct all these time anomalies, but they created so many more. For example, that Romulan, they're like, oh, good, we stopped her from igniting the cold fusion reactor or killing Khan, but you also killed a lot of guards in that hallway with your gun. Like, those guards have kids who have kids who have kids who become Starfleet captains. Oh, we don't care about them because they're not important.
Yeah, they don't have names, so they don't matter to the story. No, but you're right. No. There are. That's why you be careful about messing with time and the butterfly effect.
Yeah. And it's just weird that the cold fusion reactor and Khan are in the same building. Like, oh, two great ways to disrupt the timeline all in one place.
Yeah.
And why is it called the... Okay, first of all...
Slow down.
Okay. I have so much more, but okay, I'll stop.
Okay, so we figured out, okay, Sarah, our Romulan in disguise, who is a conspiracy theorist, quote unquote.
Yep.
The episode, the CC actually kind of made me go, wait, what? When she said her name. Because it was spelled in the CC as CERA. Sarah. And my brain went to, I literally remember the thought going, that's a very Romulan way to spell that. But then I went, that must be nothing. In my household that. But I remember thinking, that's a very Romulan way to spell that.
So the closed captions gave her away.
Yeah, kind of. It accidentally hinted at, made me think and question her.
Yeah.
But then, she left and, oh, okay. Which I should have seen coming. So, like, I didn't figure it out, but it made me go, wait a minute. Nothing. So then this, I thought the Sarah thing was kind of neat because it showed how time has changed. Not correcting. They've given some more leeway as to why what we learned in original series as fact with Khan and what has changed now because the eugenics wars never happened in our reality. So they use this as a neat way to me of the temporal Cold War, time agents messing things up. Basically, time changed, but Khan still ended up being alive. I thought it was just a neat way to add some leeway into why in the 90s we didn't actually have World War III.
I like how she said this was supposed to happen in 1992.
Yep.
But it's also interesting that they're implying that you can try to change the timeline and yet it still reverts back in a way. And yet the DTI still exists to undo these anomalies, which do change the future. So some things you can change, some things you can't.
In the Star Trek 2009 novelization, they kind of lean into to some extent, time tries to correct itself. That's why, to the book's reason for why the same crew still gets together is because it tries to correct itself and get them back together. I'm not saying that's logical or whatever like that, but it's kind of like just making time have a purpose and sense, and time itself is somewhere aware that it has this is what's supposed to happen.
Or kind of like...
I thought it was just an interesting exploration.
Like in the 2009 movie when Spock ejects Kirk from the ship and maroons him on an ice planet, and it happens to be the ice planet that has Prime Spock.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like time is trying to fix itself in ways that we can't perceive.
And it's not always seemingly accurate or effective at doing so.
Right.
So it was interesting to me. Well, let me back up. So I love the scene in the car where Kirk mispronounces La'an's name as Sung.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a conversation you and I have had, that like Data's ancestors and La'an's ancestors are not the same, but as we learn in Picard Season 3, one does engender the other. But why is it called the Noonien Singh Institute, the building they're infiltrating?
We were never made aware of that.
Like, I thought the name originated with Khan, but apparently there's somebody else with that name.
Either it's his family or just that he took that name.
Yeah, that's weird. I always thought that he was not organically conceived, that he wasn't just genetically modified, that he was grown and therefore didn't have parents. But I guess that's an assumption. That could be an assumption on my part.
It could be still the case here. We don't know that he wasn't.
Yeah. And it's interesting to suggest that, like, you can go back in time and destroy and kill a monster. Like, that's been a thought experiment for decades. Would you go back in time and kill Hitler? And La'an had the opportunity to go back in time and kill Khan before he started the eugenics wars. And we don't know that would have been a bad thing. The bad future she saw, where Vulcan is about to fall to the Romulans, that came from the Romulans destroying the cold fusion reactor.
Which
Not
killed Khan.
Oh.
They're in the same building. That was...
I missed that. Thank you. This makes sense now.
So like part of the plan, Sarah's plan, was to... she mentioned just like she talked to an AI, basically. She talked to Ziggy about how to... best way to mess up with Earth. And so a mess with Earth's progress is to kill Khan and then figure out a way to do that.
I thought when she said, like, why, if a scalpel won't work, let's use a bludgeon and let's just go kill Khan. I thought she meant something else.
Gotcha.
So she was trying to cover up Khan's assassination as a cold fusion accident. Got it. Okay. So another question I have, though, is that, and maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this was a red herring. Sarah showed our Kirk and La'an security footage of some guy waiting at the bridge for it to explode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering that we never got a resolution on that. Who was that? But now I realize, since Sarah's a Romulan, that footage could have been faked to try to throw them off the scent.
Could have been faked. There could be other agents around. We're still kind of unaware, but fake seems plausible.
Yeah, because I thought that was who they saw going into the building.
Mm-hmm.
But now I realize that could have been somebody completely different. We never did see his face in either on the footage or going into the building.
Right.
Okay, this makes more sense now.
I didn't catch this, which it feels so obvious now. In this universe or in this timeline, Kirk dies to save Khan.
Oh, technically, yeah, he does. He didn't know that at the time. Neither did La'an.
No, and he had no connection to Khan, so it's meaningless to him, that connection. But as viewers of the greater Star Trek universe,
interesting. Now, I thought, going back on this, supposed to happen in 1992. I thought we kind of agreed, I don't know if that's we as you and me or just the Star Trek community, that the reason it didn't happen in 1992 is because records from that era are inaccurate and incomplete.
That's what Picard and Pike have both said.
Okay.
And so, but we don't say why. We just make the assumption why, right?
Okay.
The war, it could be temporal, it could be all of it. I would say don't read too much into it.
Okay. Because
they're just trying to make up for why didn't it happen in the 90s for us as you and me.
Because Star Trek is going to continue producing TV shows and movies for decades to come. And they're going to continue having time travel episodes where they go back into the past. And eventually they're going to be visiting us in the year 2042. And, the eugenics wars hasn't happened. World War III hasn't happened. Stuff from Cochrane hasn't happened. So are they going to... Are they just going to keep changing the timeline to align with ours?
We'll see. I mean, they're having fun with it because a lot of people regard Star Trek as the history of our future, and like I joke about that, and like I've joked for decades with my friends, like, oh yeah, this Patrick Stewart guy, or no, excuse me, this Captain Picard guy, he just comes back to star in our television shows and movies.
Right.
He's, for whatever reason, that's very interesting for people in Star Trek time to go back in time to star in our media. They get a kick out of that. It's purely a joke. And so we can't, at some point, we have to stop taking this as a history of our future.
Well, that's kind of what the TV show, what the John Scalzi novel Red Shirts is about. Have you ever read that?
I haven't.
I highly
talked about it, but
recommend
I haven't.
Yeah, I think every time we have this conversation, it's like, have you read it? I haven't. You should. But I don't have any problem with it being the history of our future diverging from a certain point.
At some point, they're going to have to, eventually.
Right.
Or just keep playing with it. Oh, well, back then, 30 years ago, we were wrong about that, too. Temporal Cold War. Weird.
Convenient. God. All right.
That ending, that's where I cried with, like, I've been going through some things in my life, and then having her, La'an, have that fallout there, too. It just hit me, and I just started crying as well. That was so hard to watch her go through that.
It was hard to see her specifically, given how we saw her at the beginning of the episode. Very strong, very confident. And just like stumbling over her words, holding back tears, talking to Kirk. That is very out of character for her, very believable given the situation. And when she hung up and she just lost it, that's when I lost it, because I could see myself doing that. And I feel like there have been times in my life where I've been in similar situations where, as soon as I walk out the door, knowing I will never see that person again because of some irreconcilable difference. Like, I'm the one who initiated the goodbye because it had to happen. But as soon as I leave, I just break down and lose it. And that's not quite the same here because, well, it kind of is, because her Kirk is gone.
Yeah, she finally found someone she can connect with and share, because someone who doesn't have any knowledge of her legacy, something that's been building up and bottled up inside her. And she finally found someone, and he had to die and also not exist.
I was really afraid when she called Prime Kirk and she introduced herself, he was going to say, like, oh, Noonien Singh, like Khan.
That doesn't sound like him at all. He doesn't have that connection yet either.
No, but Khan Noonien Singh is a historical figure, whether or not it's a personal one for him. And even if it's not something that he would say, based on what La'an has shared, it's something that a lot of other people have said.
Yeah. So that doesn't feel like Kirk to me.
I'm glad. That didn't happen, because that would have devastated her. Like, one of the things she loved about Kirk was that he didn't know her last name.
Right. It's kind of interesting to think about all these characters right now. Khan is someone who lived hundreds of years in the past. They have no clue that he's still around.
Right.
It's interesting to think about that, to me.
Botany Bay, it's out there.
Botany Bay.
You got anything else?
Ortegas.
Thank you, Melissa Navia.
It's so embarrassing. One of my favorite characters, and I can't think of her name.
It's fine. She's fine. So I don't think I have anything else to say about this episode.
That's all I got for tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Other than, like, I just really love that way that she went from being so cold and hard at the beginning of the episode to finding it and losing it. It was so well done.
Oh, I just remembered. I do have one more question. What is up with Kirk's brother being either Sam or George?
Oh, they joked about that here.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out, are they doing that on purpose because they're trying to resolve?
Yes.
What's the issue?
Just like, what's his name? Because in the movies, they were calling him Sam. Right?
Okay. I don't know.
And everyone else is George.
I mean, he died in TOS.
What was on the gravestone? Was it? Do you remember? I don't remember.
Oh, I don't remember a gravestone.
Maybe it wasn't one. Maybe I'm thinking of No, I'm thinking of like James S. Kirk or whatever they had on there before they realized his last name was going to be.
And also, this is George Kirk Jr. George Samuel Kirk Sr. was Captain Kirk's father.
Yeah.
Oh, and also George Kirk had a son named George Kirk Jr. had a son named Peter Kirk.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, but it's kind of like in the comic books, the Incredible Hulk was named Bruce Banner. And then when they did the TV show with Bill Bixby, they called him David Banner.
Oh, that's right. For the copyright things or something?
Well, that's the first time I've heard that reason. The two other reasons I've heard. The first reason I heard, and this was back when I was on the online service Genie back in the 90s. And so in hindsight, I put no stock in this. But what I heard at the time was that somebody in the production studio felt that Bruce as a name was too gay. I don't know. And this was back in the 80s, so maybe. But what I have also now heard, which seems more believable to me, if you look at the names of characters in comic books, we have Clark Kent, Lois Lane, Lana Lang, Bruce Banner, Peter Parker, a lot of alliteration. And they want... Yeah, but it also feels kind of comical, like in a comic book sense. And they were adapting this to be a TV show. It was not a comical TV show. It was sad. And so they wanted something a little more serious, so they can name him David Banner. And now, I think the canon is that his name is Bruce David Banner. It's his middle name.
Fun.
So I was trying to figure out, like, if they called him Sam in some shows and George in others, then maybe they're just now saying, oh yeah, one's his middle name and nobody calls him that or whatever. But yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know why he is named different things. Oh, one more question I have is, in that alternate timeline that we saw last season with Pike, and he asked La'an, has anybody talked to number 1 lately? And La'an says, it's been years since anybody's heard from her, not since she was arrested for being genetically modified. So that implies that there is a timeline where that happened. And there has to be a change in the timeline for that to not happen. And we've seen now in the episode at Astra per Aspera that it didn't happen. So what is different in our timeline, in the prime timeline, that allowed her to be saved from a penal colony, whereas in the other timeline she was sentenced there forever?
I don't have an answer for you. Honestly.
Yeah, me neither.
Maybe in an alternate universe, she took the plea deal and.
But where? I mean, what changed to make her want to do that? I don't know. These are.
They're also. I mean, people also make mistakes.
No, they don't. Not in Star Trek.
I would say that. I mean, it's if you want to try to explain it, like, we don't have enough information.
Yeah.
There's the real world answer, and then there's the in-universe, and we just don't have the missing information.
Because my understanding of what that alternate timeline, what engendered it, was Pike saving himself from that accident.
Yep.
And that happens years from now.
Uh-huh.
You know, at the point where Una's trial happens, there shouldn't have been a change yet. So, I don't know. But it is not something I need an answer to. It is just enough for me to raise the question. That's all I got.
All right. Now to go back to Vermont. Make sure all the goods are still good. If you have anything more. No, you don't. You're good?
I'm good. Are you good?
Closed out. You're good? Nothing more to add to you?
Well, I will say that the next episodes, we already have the names of every episode this season. So on July 6th, the episode is going to be Among the Lotus Eaters, co-written by Kirsten Beyer. And the episode after that, on July 13th, will be Charades. And the season finale airs August 17th. So you and I are going to continue airing episodes of Transporter Lock, the podcast, every other week or so. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that means we'll be back after watching Among the Lotus Eaters and Charades, which is good timing because you and I are both out of town next weekend. Yeah. So we won't be around to record. And the weekend after that, I will be on my way to my 26th annual Kansas Fest, which is an annual Apple II convention in Kansas City. So you and I will record an episode before I leave, and then I will be in Kansas City for a week. And then when I get back, we'll record another episode, including the episode Those Old Scientists, directed by Jonathan Frakes. That is coming in late July.
I think I know what that episode is.
I can guess. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're back. It's good to be back on the air. And until next time.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.